Hey guys, I am the math professor, Kyle Martin. In this video, we're going to find the domain and the range of the inverses of the functions here behind me. But real quick reminder before we do, please subscribe to this channel, all right? If this video helps you, if videos in the past have helped you, if you wouldn't mind subscribing for me. And then when you do subscribe, if you'd leave a little comment down below in the comment of any video, and I'll be sure to respond to that comment. All right, let's get into this video about inverses. All right, before we begin, I want to remind you of three quick things. First off, if we have the function f of x and f inverse of x, remember these are one-to-one functions, okay? So keep that in mind. Secondly, the domain of our inverse is always going to be the range of our original function. And then lastly, kind of backwards, the range of our original function is the domain of our inverse. So there are timestamps in the video player below. Click whichever one you want. If you want easy, medium, or hard, or if you want to watch all of them, just stick right here. All right, guys, first example, the easy example, says f of x equals 4x plus 2. We're going to find the inverse of this, and then we can find the domain and the range of that inverse. Remember, if you forgot how to find the inverse of these functions, I have a video up here that you can watch. Go ahead and click that. But if you remember, let me do this quick, and then we'll find the domain and the range of that inverse. All right, so I went ahead and found the inverse of this function, and it gives us the inverse of f is actually x minus 2 over 4, okay? So when we find the domain and the range of this, we have to think about a couple things. First off, our domain of this current function is going to be all real numbers, the domain of our inverse function, okay? And that is true, domain. That is true because there's nothing I can plug in for x that's going to give me either divided by 0 or a negative square root. That's when the domain doesn't work. So remember, if you forgot how to find the domain of a function, I'll put another video right here for you. Go ahead and click that. But otherwise, the domain of this one is going to be all real numbers. So you can write that a couple different ways. You can say it goes from negative infinity to infinity, or there's some people like to write the domain as the set of all x's such that, line means such that x is all real numbers, the set of all real numbers. Okay, so that's the domain. Now we also need to remember that the range of our inverse is going to be the domain of our original. So when I find the range now, for my second part, the range, I need to go back to my original and think, what is the domain of that? Because it's going to be the range of my inverse. And kind of like our inverse function here, its domain, the domain of this one's also going to be all real numbers. Again, there's nothing I can plug in that's going to give me something that's divided by 0 or a negative square root. So here the range is going to be the exact same. All right, guys, the second example, our medium one, we need to find the inverse of this and then find its domain and range. Let's check it out. All right, so I breezed through the inverse there and got that the inverse of our function is actually the square root of x plus 4 minus 1. Okay, now, before we jump into this one and find its domain and range, we have to remember that you can only find the domain and the range of these functions if they are one-to-one. This is not, okay? If you think about this, this is a parabola, right? And a parabola, I'll just draw a general one here, is let's say it looks like this. I'll make this my x and y maybe. And then if I take a different color and think that this is need to be reflected, across our, that wasn't a very good line, but across our line y equals x, all right, so our third example and our hard example is what I'm calling it. We have f of x equals 1 over x minus 2. Again, let me find the inverse of this really quick. All right, I found the inverse to be, the inverse function is 1 over x plus 2. So let's think about this. We need to find a domain and the range of these. Our domain of our original, remember we can have all of our x's except when x is 0. So our original domain, I'll put it over here, is going to be all real numbers except, depending on how you write that, except when x equals 0. Okay, that's when it's bad. And then over here, our domain of our inverse function is the set of all x's except when x is -2. We would be dividing by 0 in that case. All right, so for this domain, let's write that. It's the, I'll do some interval notation. Let's go from -infinity all the way up until when x is -2, right? Union with, on the other side, -2 to infinity. And then our range, remember, is going to be our domain of our original function, which we found to be all real numbers except when x is 0. So very similar, except it's the -infinity to 0 now, union with 0 to +infinity. All right, so a couple things to remember as we recap. If you find the domain of your original function, that's going to be the range of your inverse. When you find the domain of your inverse function, that's just the domain of your inverse function. But that helps you find both the domain and the range of our inverse functions. Hey guys, I hope you found this video helpful about finding the domain and the range of our inverse functions. If you did, please help me out again by subscribing. If you leave a comment saying that you subscribed, I'll be sure to comment back and respond to that. Thanks guys.